Today, we found out that there does appear to be a little change in direction when it comes to stories out of the US, saying that Meghan is so excited for her kids to have a relationship with His Majesty King Charles. Nothing, though, about Her late Majesty the Queen. Once again, Meghan Markle is just trying to pull at the King's heartstrings. Now, I don't think there is any revelation that could come from Montecito that would really bring down the monarchy, but I suspect they may be able to give it quite a shake-up. Is it possible, or is it even probable, that if the king were found to be complicit in all of this, he may be called upon to stand down or abdicate in favor of Prince William? I mean, it's just a thought. Now, I don't want that to happen, but I think it is high time that the British public found out the truth about those children. If the rumors are true, and I'm really not convinced about that, then it certainly does affect the line of succession. Whatever is said to the media on either side, whether it's about the king wanting to offer an olive branch or Meghan claiming that she wants the invisible kids to enjoy a relationship with Charles, it's all a bunch of nonsense. Charles knows that soon enough news is going to break about her use of surrogates. This is the one subject that is still causing the royals quite the headache. They're going to have to figure out a way to deal with it, but they need to do that in a way that the public is tricked into believing they were never involved in this deception. Now, I understand there's a lot of hatred in the family towards Meghan for always putting them through such a mess of gigantic proportions. It is rocking the monarchy on basically a daily basis now. Everybody in the palace has a good idea of how Meghan should be handled. The courtiers, led by Nicholas Soames, are old school. They would much prefer the media stop writing about Harry and Meghan. They're trying to convince the king that with enough time the public will become quiet and submissive once again. But then Queen Camilla and William and Catherine are completely on the other side. They want to see Meghan and Harry dealt with decisively to end their little games forever. King Charles is a very kind and considerate person, and he just wants a quiet life, and who can really blame him for that? I would love to see him able to enjoy the coronation with his people, and then I hope that he goes for the jugular where Meghan and Harry are concerned. Camilla, William, and Catherine. So they understand the truth about the invisible kids, the surrogates, the bullying report, and basically everything else needs to be publicized. Everybody's just sick of Meghan's crap. If the truth can just finally come out, then Meghan and Harry will be forced to stew in their own juices. And I'm sure in the beginning there's going to be some anger and some uproar, but there are too many people who suspect the truth, and they believe the family was tricked in the beginning. And by the time they figured out what was really going on, they were basically caught between a rock and a hard place. I suspect that eventually the public is going to forgive the royal family because really they were victims of this scam too. Her late Majesty the Queen was in control of the narrative at that time. Charles needs to finish what should have already been started. I think this could be the bomb that Meghan wants to explode right before the coronation, so it's important that Charles does not wait a second longer. He needs to be proactive in this situation. He doesn't need to wait until something else happens. Now, there's going to be a lot of media attention, no doubt, but eventually that will pass. The sooner the better the palace reveals the truth about the surrogacy, the sooner the family can begin the process of healing. Meghan is going to fight back, but still, I think the royal family can effectively slam the door in her face and walk away. No money from King Charles for Meghan after that divorce either, and I hope they never mention Meghan's name ever again. It's time to just shut it all down and move on. This is the best way to deal with someone toxic like Meghan. There is some information out there along with photos of when Meghan was, quote, pregnant with the two children, along with other comments, suggestions, etc. Since before Archie's birth, with Meghan's ever-changing baby bump, people have wondered how a very pregnant woman can have such a drastic change in the baby bump sizes. Now, as for the birth certificate collages, I searched for a long time to try to find the correct info about Elizabeth's birth. There were a few names, actually, quite the variety, and different counties claiming that Lilibet was in fact born there. There's also a lot of information out there from people who worked in the hospitals or knew people who worked in the hospitals, and they never saw or even heard of Meghan or any VIP for that matter giving birth. There was a husband of one doctor who even came out to acknowledge that his wife simply did not deliver Archie, even though she was listed as the delivery doctor. The birth announcements of both Archie and Lilibet weren't signed by a doctor, and the announcement the family made never even acknowledged that Meghan actually gave birth to either child. So, in no particular order, this list is going to be long enough without trying to organize the list. But anyway, I'm going to attempt to label anything that is not self explained. So, the first look of Archie, where Harry said, "Oh, yeah, babies change a lot in 2 weeks," it was a bizarre thing to say. And the baby was being pushed down hard enough that Harry's thumb looked white. But the weird thing was, that alleged baby never moved, it never changed positions, and it never cried. I'm sure that would have hurt if Harry was really pressing it so hard that his thumb turned white. Now, the baby here is compared with a reborn baby doll named Darren. During the christening of Archie, Catherine was seen going to it in a summery blue dress. But then there's a Photoshop photo that has her wearing some red or bright pink. It's hard to tell which color it is. Finally, they claimed when they walked away from their positions in the royal family that they wanted to do that partially because they wanted to give Archie a normal childhood. Now, in the beginning, they had decided that they didn't want to accept a title for him so that he could enjoy a normal life. If that was really the reason they left, then why should they lie about being pregnant and not using surrogates? It doesn't make any sense. If they were having all these problems with having children, and that was all they really wanted was just to have a normal family, they wouldn't have needed to hide anything. So it leads us to believe that they had a lot more in mind than only having these children they supposedly so desperately wanted. I could also add that neighbors and other people who live in the community have not seen any kids. They have not seen any toys, really no evidence of children whatsoever. So these are kids that no one can even find any proof exist, and nobody can find any proof that they were actually born to Meghan in a hospital. Also, why did Meghan use a surrogate doctor instead of the ones that the royal family always used? I would assume the royal family has access to the very best doctors, nurses, and midwives and hospitals in the whole world. And sadly, I don't think it's so simple that the king can just come out and reveal the truth about those invisible kids. After all, people are already calling him racist and a lot of other things thanks to the Montecito moaners. So if Charles brings up this issue first, he's going to be viewed as an even bigger racist and liar. Instead, it needs to be brought out by somebody who cannot be accused of having an agenda. And whoever can come out with that information needs to have real proof that Meghan and Harry lied about those births. Maybe the birth mom or mothers. I'm sure they were made to sign NDAs, so maybe they can't legally speak out. But I would assume the family and friends of these mothers could speak for them. The Queen knew, I'm sure, everything there was to know about Meghan and her past before they let her join the family. I'm sure she wanted to know if Meghan had real skeletons that might affect the family. And I suspect Harry and Meghan had a very quick wedding somewhere before they even asked the Queen for permission. And see, at that point, it would have been too late for the late Queen to say no. And that's why Meghan did not seem to really even care about that wedding. Who's going to have a worldwide historic show and not make sure that every single detail is perfect, especially a wedding dress? Come on. I think the royal family were just as surprised as all of us when the first pregnancy announcement happened. What were they supposed to do at that point? I mean, could they really come out and accuse Harry of lying and helping Meghan? Once the truth of the surrogacy comes out, the family is going to have a very good reason as to why they stayed quiet. And I believe it's improbable that they're going to use either Harry or Meghan's mental health as to why they felt like they weren't able to say anything. For me, the more likely scenario is that the royal family is going to claim they realized that Harry had some serious mental health problems, and they were not sure in the beginning if he even knew that the pregnancy was a big lie. Or maybe they'll say that he was so desperate to have kids that they worried what was going to happen to him if they didn't just stay quiet about the surrogacies. The family could do a lot of good PR and they could release some stuff so that it actually makes them look good in the end. And it could have been the late Queen who was the one who insisted that all of these surrogacy rumors were hushed up. I suspect that Charles just went along with his mother's orders, and now maybe he doesn't know how to get himself out of this mess. When Invisibet was born, the congratulations were not said in a way that would lead us to believe that Meghan even gave birth to the child. And all the information about the doctor not having delivered the baby was leaked, and the royal family never came out and discounted it. So I think they are preparing for the release, and I suspect everybody's going to feel relieved when all the lies finally come out. They can just deal with the backlash and then move on once and for all. The royal family, I understand, were just trying to protect their family, and people who sympathize with the family will support them. And as for the people who don't support them, well, it's probably better if they're just ignored anyway.